out an all out thing. So
Yeah,
um,
uncensored, just be you.
yep, yep, exactly. And yeah, I'm not seeing it come up, but it's showing live on here. So
I'm seeing Dan's live,
okay,
so
good,
it's on his page, and then
good.
I'll share it for you guys, and then I'll have to hop off in about 20 minutes because then I have the Mom Squad podcast. So I'll
Okay,
I'll be here for a little bit with you guys.
all right, fantastic. Um, I don't know how Dan starts it. I think just jump right into it with both feet up to the hips. Dan normally plays intro music, and I don't think my intro music's appropriate.
Just Melanie, sing a tune there. Just sing a song.
Yeah, somewhere over the rainbow.
You can have my kids
Might not have
screaming
the
in the
rights to that
background.
song. Be careful.
That's right. That's right. But this show is Dan the Messenger live after show, and I believe Dan has been referring to it as Dan in the Mix. But it's certainly become a common ground for after the podcast, just to kind of a release and focus on specific messages. And Doug, you know me as Tom. Everybody knows me as Tank. It's a nickname that I got almost 20 years ago, and it's just kind of stuck. Sometimes my wife calls me that name followed by profanity. But no. And obviously Melanie Kopko, she's
I got screaming kids in the background, but I'm here.
the master of all. And occasionally I can get her husband to twerk in the background. But my favorite thing, she got a Pittsburgh Steelers blanket hanging back there.
Oh no!
Yeah, I don't even know. I don't even know what this is. Yeah, he's back there probably yelling at the kids. I got this today. There's like a distribution store that like Amazon returns and stuff go to, and it was Dollar Day, so I always go on Dollar Day, and I got this and this one, and I have no clue what they are, but they were $1, so I had to buy them. I think they might be like kids' gaiters, maybe.
Yeah,
but they seem kind of long. Yeah, so I figured I can do something with them for $1. Heck, and it's the Steelers, so I had to buy it.
Yeah, right. If nothing else, they make a good wall hanging.
Exactly. I figured I'll make a flag or something.
And speaking of
it's something to burn. So
that's
right.
And speaking of Pittsburgh Steelers, let me introduce Doug Cornfield. I met Doug, oddly enough, in a public area, and my wife and I stopped to eat lunch, and Doug had happened to be there by chance, talking to a server, getting some lunch, and I think Doug froze up a little bit.
I'm not froze?
Oh, no, you're good now.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So I overheard a conversation that Doug was having with one of the servers, or a piece of a conversation, and it referred to some of the work that he does with kids with limitations and disabilities, and it caught my ear immediately. So I set my fork down and got up and went over and introduced myself to Doug, and interrupted his conversation rudely. And I apologize.
No worries.
I gave him my card, and Doug started telling me a little bit about himself, and it was just one of those things that I think I was meant to overhear that conversation, because it was right up the Punisher's network with what he does and with what you all do at Hope for Humanity. So, but I'll get in that. Doug, if you could just kind of tell us, about yourself. And
all right. So I run sports camps for kids with disabilities. That's kind of one of my primary functions. And we partner with, in a normal year, of course, 2020 wasn't a normal year. We partner with several professional baseball teams primarily, although we've done this program that we do with hockey professional teams. And I kind of got to backtrack. I hope to have Dave Clark on the show with you and remind me about the tank thing, because he's got a special friend that was also named Tank, and he can have a whole series of fun stories just about this man named Tank, just to put that on your back burner. But Dave was a polio survivor, and he's the only professional baseball player that ever played on crutches. And most people have never heard his amazing story, but Dave and I met 20 years ago when I read an article about him winning the Heroes of Sports Award, huge award that he won, national award. People like Lance Armstrong were there, the Nike people, and so he won this award, and I was reading about it in the newspaper. And Dave is from the same small town as my wife in Corny, New York, where I now live. And so Dave and I became friends, but the link to all that was I had at that time, he's now 22, but at that time I had a 2-year-old son who was born with neither arm developed. And when I'm finding out about this man who had polio, played baseball on crutches professionally, the story didn't make any sense to me. And basically 20 years ago, I met Dave, didn't know 10 years later I would leave the Merrill Lynch office and travel around the country with him, telling stories and doing sports camps for kids with disabilities and other things that we now do, which constantly gets changed and rearranged, especially in years like 2020.
Yeah, it's such an amazing thing that you do, and not being a baseball fanatic like other people in my family, I can say that I honestly had never heard of Dave Clark until you brought it up.
Yeah. And
then I came home and I started watching video, and I started realizing I have heard of this guy. I've heard stories, and it wasn't real vivid to me, but it was certainly stories that I've heard growing up, and it was one of those things that, growing up as a child, you just didn't believe, because in your mind you had a vision of what baseball players were. They were these, big, strong guys, Willie Stargell, Hank Aaron,
right.
All them, and so. You always thought, as a kid, you were, somebody was joking with you. And then to watch his story play out, and some of the things that I've watched is just amazing. It's really amazing.
It really is. And one of the reasons I left Merrill Lynch, and I'll call you Tank here on this show, was because, when I found out about Dave's story, we became friends. And I thought it was movie worthy, to be honest. From the day I started to get to know him. Now, he didn't think it was movie worthy. He just lived his life and doesn't think it's a great story and all those kind of things. And so I put my belief to action. And we don't talk about this much publicly yet, but let's just say there's something big in the works. But it took 10 years to get there.
That's awesome.
We'll see what happens, and hopefully it's not the greatest, mostly unknown sports story. Dave Clark becomes the greatest sports story of our time, and it's simply amazing. At 5'2" and on crutches, everything he's done, and that's actually the first camp that we ever did together in Corny, New York, bringing the camp back over 10 years ago. We got T-shirts for everybody. We had folks of all different ages. They came out to the field. Dave was in his hometown. And now whenever any of those young folks, and some of them aren't young, some of them are adults with limitations and disabilities that come to our camps every year, when they see Dave, it's as if Elvis came into the room. They buzz him like a bee. They all want to say hi. They all want to say, they want to get a piece of Dave. They want to talk to him. And it's really fascinating to see the response of people when Dave and how he affects so many lives of the people that he's come in contact with.
And that's amazing. And you can see that through all of the videos when you search for him. And not surprisingly, he was a legit pitcher.
He was this close to getting to the majors. People don't understand. He wasn't a sideshow. because that's one of the things in the story that we have to kind of fight. Oh, he must have been like a globetrotter, but for baseball. And it wasn't that case. He developed a knuckleball that was nasty. And when it was working, he made people look like fools at the plate. And, you know, he couldn't throw hard. You know, he was throwing from his crutches. He had to do switch glove. You know, there's all sorts of things that he had to figure out differently, and to keep his balance, you know, all that stuff. But the bottom line is he had great control with the knuckleball, and he was this close to getting a call up in 1976 with the Chicago White Sox. They were actively pursuing him at that point. It didn't pan out, but he still became friends with Mike Beck, who was the only son, Bill Beck. And to this day, you know, Dave and Mike still interact. And Mike actually wrote the foreword to Dave's book called Diamond in the Rough, the Dave Clark story, which is still available, but we'll be writing hopefully a new one to kind of really update the story and make it as wonderful as it actually is. Good.
And, you know, we, you know, I had lunch with Doug today, and Doug gave me a book that he wrote, and it's a children's book. He writes children's books, and the story behind it hit me like a Mack truck, to be honest. I mean, it was, it's something that you kind of focus on keeping your composure because the story has so much meaning behind it. Yeah. And you're listening to the story and you're looking at a children's book. It, you know, it doesn't take long to realize without even reading it, the power behind this and the message that it'll send out to not only adults, but to children. And, you know, would you mind sharing that story?
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure to share because I'm a part of it. And, you know, you have to go back to 1958. If you can just imagine a little boy wearing Forrest Gump type braces, you know, the kind of heavy leather braces and metal braces that went all the way up to his hips. He's 6 years old. He's only 5'2" as an adult, so you got to imagine he's one of the smallest children in his class, probably the smallest, and walking around with crutches and braces. So he's the different kid. And really, up until he went to school, he never felt different. But in school, as he would say, he was made to feel different. And, you know, so it's first grade. He's a different kid. They're calling him things like Oleo, which rhymed with polio. And of course, Dave hated that. You know, he was the kid that got polio and almost died, and here he is now in first grade being reminded of it every day. And his first grade teacher announced a field trip, and it was a walking field trip, but it was about 5 blocks away to the fire hall. And back in the 50s and still today, kids love going to see the firemen. And Dave basically didn't want to go. It was a 5-block trip. He didn't even know if he could walk that far. He knew it was going to be slower than everybody else. He knew he was going to be left behind. And so he had what he remembers of at least 2 weeks, a week to 2 weeks, of just dreading this event coming and being left behind. And even the day of the event comes, he does what every good first grader is going to try at least once. He tries to act sick to get out of school and try to fake his mom out by coughing, and he knew better. So off to school he went, and here he is getting in line after the teacher calls everybody to get in line. And Dave goes to the back of the line, and he's thinking this is going to be the absolute worst day. Kids making fun of him, and he's got all this pressure on him. And one of his classmates, Dave never forgot his name. His name's actually Ernie Pound. Ernie had brought his radio flyer wagon and told Dave to get in. And he jumps in. All of a sudden, now the day is a wonderful day. He's pulling. All the kids want to take turns pulling Dave, so now he's completely included instead of being left out. And he gets to the fire hall, and there's Ernie and Dave and his dog Duke. Dave had a dog named Duke, so I had to write Duke into the story, and there's kind of a fun little side story of all that. But Ernie Pound and Dave wound up not seeing each other for 45 years because Ernie's family had left the area. And where I come in is, I can show you the picture. I don't know if you have it, but Dave's book called The Diamond in the Rough, I have it right here. In chapter 2, Dave had shared that story. And as I told you earlier, with my son being born with neither arm developed, as a parent, when I'm reading Dave sharing this story and literally saying to Ernie Pound, thank you from the bottom of my heart, I got the goosebumps every time I read that story. And so I was helping Dave organize book signings. And it came to me, I got to find this Ernie Pound. And I wound up finding him living in Watkins Glen. A lot of your folks are going to know what Watkins Glen, New York is because of the raceway there. And that's where Ernie lives now. And I found him, and I had an awkward phone call. And Ernie wound up coming to a book signing, and he put a book underneath Dave's nose, and he said, sign this one to Ernie Pound. And let's just say the emotions lit up in that coffee shop. And I put the two together, and now we've signed this children's book. And Dave and I have been sharing that story for years. We've been sharing the story at his speaking events, and we even have an award that's called the Pulling Each Other Along Award. You can see on wherever my logo is here. You can see that it's part of our message of the importance of helping others, the importance of not just being pulled along, but pulling others along as well, and the balance of all of that. And so here we are, now 20 years later, sharing this story still, and we brought it to a children's book called A Pound of Kindness. And we're hoping to do other children's books. It's just a matter of finances. It's not cheap to do these things. I printed 4,000 of the books that I have. We're actually looking at a reprint right now because most of those are sold. We're trying to continue to tell the story in elementary schools and in schools. We have a plan for that. So if people want to reach out to us, they can reach out to me through Facebook or, .com, apoundofkindness.net. They can order the book. They can get all 3 books, and Dave and I will sign them, or at least one of them will be signed, and we'll get those books out. There's a coloring book that goes along with the children's book, so it's kind of a nice little package that people can get.
Now, Doug, you had mentioned that there's some programs that you're trying to do with getting these books out to the schools. Which immediately caught my attention because I think that's certainly a level that the Punishers organization can help you with. Yeah. And with Mel and her mom squad and Dan and Mel with Hope for Humanity, I definitely think that's, you have reasonable and achievable goals, and something that we can certainly do what we can to get the word out, raise whatever funding we can to help put those books into schools. Can you tell us a little bit about that? I'm sorry, Mel.
I was just going to say, my sister-in-law is actually a principal in a school up in Virginia, so I definitely can even reach out to her too to see, what we could do, and different steps and things like that to be able to help in that aspect. And tonight on the Mom Squad, we actually are talking about education and how the pandemic has really thrown a loop through it all, and we have a few educators coming on to be guest, speakers. So I can definitely share, your information, the website, things like that on our podcast tonight too.
Yeah. The Zoom thing, we typically last year did quite a few major speaking events, all over the country. Orlando, we were the keynote speakers with the Pound of Kindness at the largest disability convention in Orlando. We spoke, at schools, elementary schools, awards banquets, you kind of name it. We've done it. And Dave's story can kind of filter it everywhere. But this year's everything's changed. We're not traveling as much. We're staying home. And so we've already done this where we've done a Zoom with a school in Texas where Dave and I share this story. And there's so many others. I mean, I could literally tell you, I have 7 children's books with Dave's stories ready to go, titles and all. And one of them about my son, Gideon, as well. But they're beautiful stories that share a message of kindness, of overcoming, of, not judging the book by its cover kind of stories. But the main character is a child with limitations, a child with disabilities. And so we get to see both sides of the angle of the effect and the importance of being included. And, and there's so many aspects of all that. But the message is Dave and I sharing these stories. And I usually primarily, when I have Dave on, I just let him share the stories. And then I'm kind of the color commentator at that point. And we share the stories. They get to see this incredible man who overcame a pandemic, the polio pandemic, and he didn't let that stop him. It's it's an amazing story. But then you hear the heart-touching stories of him in gym class, getting his first opportunity in gym class from a teacher, because up until third grade, Dave was never allowed to participate in gym class. And a third grade teacher changed his life, who happened to be a U.S. hero in the Army with 3 tours in Italy, and so a colonel in the Army. And so we have these stories that are just amazing, but those stories the kids never forget. They don't forget the Pound of Kindness story. They don't forget Dave's gym class story, which I haven't shared yet, and we can get into that if you want. But these stories that he shares, and we're really asking for a very low ceiling right now, between $500, and they would get a box of our books and coloring books, and you get a free Zoom, along with that. And then if they want more books, we'll get them more books. And if they want, eventually we hope to do more in person again, where if, but obviously there's a lot more cost to that to get both Dave and I there, and
right.
Things like that. And right now that's not even doable. So we're just saying, hey, let's get this story of kindness out there. It can be sponsored. Schools can have parents pre-order the books, and then we'll do a Zoom. There's all sorts of ways that we can make this happen.
I love that. And my son and my daughter both attend an elementary school here in Cape Coral, and their motto or their theme this year is it's all about kindness.
Yeah.
So I mean, it goes hand in hand. So I mean, I'm ready to start emailing the principal right now.
So I have some.
I would say I just friend requested you on Facebook.
Okay,
So
I saw it come through.
Perfect. I'll connect with you, and if you could get me some type of letter of stating what the what you're asking for and what they would receive, I'll start shooting it off to everybody and anybody I can think of.
Well, wonderful. And Dave lives in Cape Coral. I come down from New York, but Dave lives in Cape Coral. So
Perfect.
Hopefully we're doing in-persons again.
And I know a lot of people on the school board in Pennsylvania and where I originally went to school. So, I mean, I got some connections. So I'm really excited to see what I can do to help you guys out.
Well, that would be wonderful. And, and right now our whole financial, this isn't like a naysaying thing. We always try to figure it out. And, but this year has been one hurdle after another.
Oh, I'm sure.
And even our normal financial revenues that we bring in, it's not normal anymore. So the Zoom, Dave's story is very powerful, and the kids will connect with him even on Zoom, and they'll connect with these stories, and they literally will never forget it.
I love it.
And so we want to make that impact, and then hopefully we have other stories here in short order. So that's but the Pound of Kindness, it's a pretty special story, and of course I'm the author, so I'm biased, but it's really not about me. It's about what Ernie Pound did, and Dave never forgetting that, and the impact it's now having on thousands of lives, because we have spoken to thousands and thousands of people. We just want to make it tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands, if not millions.
But if you don't mind me saying, Doug, this whole thing has affected you as well, because you're a parent of a child with limitations,
right?
And the strength that you bring through these books, and the equality that you bring, and just following Dave's story as I have been, it really puts everybody on an even playing field. Regardless of your limitation or disability or whatever, and you bringing light to that through your books. Like the cover of that book, A Pound of Kindness, that's an image that's ingrained into my brain, because I think everyone in our generation can remember playing out on the sidewalk along a busy street, maybe running down to the 5 and 10 cent store, and that was one of the first things that I picked up on. I remember I turned to my wife and I said, "Look, a 5 and 10 cent store." Yeah. And it's something that we relate to. So that image is just engraved in my brain right now. And it just makes me want to learn more about, the stories and with Dave's story, and also how we can, as a community, wherever we're at, how we can give back to these children that have limitations, and my grandson's 9, and he has a saying every time we go out. He tells everybody an act of kindness is free.
Yeah.
And, for 9 years old, it's just, I don't know where he hears this stuff. It's, the language would be a lot different if he was repeating what I say, but, but just, and he's right, just being kind to somebody doesn't cost anything, and
right.
it doesn't take any time. And, given any other place in you and I in passing, it just happened to be what was it? The blue
I don't
water.
even know what it was. It's something.
It was a blue water seafood house.
Yeah. At
just remembered that
flea market, the Flea Masters or whatever it is. It's the only first time I'd ever been there, and I know the owner of that particular restaurant. He invited me down, so that was kind of all these things are connected, and I can tell you things of people that I met out in California at a speaking event that Dave and I did when we first started, and I can give you a whole link of people I've met, including Liston Bechet, who just won your city council in Fort Myers, Florida, who's a friend of mine. He's a 5-time Olympian, and I get with Liston every time I'm down here. But all these connections that I got, they're linked, and it's just amazing. And this is just another part of that. And you overhearing my conversation and linking, and that I'm here now, and then I can connect you with some other people that we're writing stories about. It's pretty powerful.
And I believe Mel has Mom Squad.
I hate to run because I'm loving this, but I do have to run and do my Mom Squad podcast. So I'm going to start spreading the word right now.
Get me on the Mom Squad,
Right, so exactly.
I've got 7 kids, so I'm a father of and 1 wife, just for the record, for the people out there.
Wow.
But it was a pleasure getting to meet with you. And like I said, I will definitely connect with you to talk some more about the book and everything. Tank, thank you for hosting tonight. And guys, have a wonderful night and stay on as long as you want.
All right. Love you, Mel.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye. So what I was thinking was I go back to I go back to that day, and that's so out of character for me a lot of times, because that was my second time at Flea Masters, and I was kind of worried about the crowd, and I don't know if you know, but I do have PTSD, so being around a crowd, my wife she knows what triggers me, and she knows what can settle me down. So she'll pull me aside and say, "Hey, let's sit down and have a drink, or let's sit down and have lunch, or whatever." And I'll throw your friend a plug. And everybody that listens to our show knows that I'm going in for open heart surgery. However, the deep fried hamburger that I had that day was the first one I've ever had, and it was life-changing. And not life-changing in a way that it caused me to have open heart surgery, but just in general, the servers were nice. The owner, I believe it was the owner, even come out and talked to us.
Yeah,
and asked us how we liked everything, and it was just it was an impressive find. It was like finding a diamond at a flea market.
Yeah,
somewhere
it just opened. And so there's like 2 owners, and I know the other owner because he has other restaurants in the area down in Florida. But anyway, it's kind of interesting and how all those things connect together, and hard to understand sometimes, Tank, as far as these dots that get put together. But I got to say, it's for some kind of purpose. And
yeah, absolutely. And hopefully throughout this whole process, and especially with people that go on and view whether they're viewing now or on another platform, or whether they, look at it tomorrow. Hopefully they realize that if they take 10 minutes out of their day and go to YouTube and type in Dave Clark and watch a couple of his videos, it will change their perspective.
You got to type in Dave Clark baseball or Dave Clark polio or Dave Clark crutches, or just go to d3day.com.
Yep.
Because there's a million Dave Clarks in this world, which is, I say it's like marketing a guy, a needle and a stack of needles. It's because it's the Dave Clark 5, and some people will remember the Dave Clark 5 and songs like Glad All Over that they did. And you have to be a little older than me to remember those days, but they were like the second biggest group next to the Beatles at one point.
Yeah.
And so they like dominate YouTube. And so I'm always fighting those things, but that's just the way it is.
And you have, is there other work that you do other than d3day.com?
Well, just it's we have kind of two sides of our world. We have a business side and we have the nonprofit. In a typical world, most of my time and energies has been raising money and keeping the sports camps going for kids with disabilities. That's been really mine and Dave's life's passion for the last 10 years. Working that together, growing the brand, so to speak. A couple years ago, and we can get him online, we have Dave Stevens. That's a part of us now. He's been working with us for 4 years. Dave's another just unbelievable story almost. It's not unbelievable because it actually happened, but he's a 7-time Emmy Award winner with ESPN. Dave Stevens was born with no legs. He was a championship wrestler in high school. He wrestled in college. He played baseball in high school and college. And he's the only double amputee with no legs to play collegiate football. And so look at his stuff, and he was on That's Incredible as a kid. If you remember the old That's Incredible with Frank Tarkington, he was actually on the same show that little 8-year-old Tiger Woods was on.
No kidding.
Yeah. So there's so he's my other Dave, and so I have 2 Daves now, and both of them come to the sports events that we do. They're a major inspiration to these families, giving them hope. I know we're talking about hope for humanity here. To tie that in, and these days they give a lot of hope in a normal year to just thousands and thousands of people, and we just want to make it tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and millions.
And that's important, and especially where we've come, I think, in the difference in generations, just to be able to give people hope that may be hopeless at this point, and let them know that they're not by themselves, and there's still people giving kindness. And so if somebody wanted to donate money to your organization or to our fund, to your cause, how would they?
Ways. They can go to poundofkindness.net and order the books. Okay, so that's kind of one way they help us, which is significant. And then they can go to d3day.com, and if they give a tax-deductible gift, it goes to the Southwest Florida Foundation, and it's called the Disability Dream and Do Fund. And they can always reach out to us. I'm pretty easy to find because there's like no other Doug Cornfields in the world on Facebook. And so if you punch in Doug Cornfield, you find me. Or if you message me through our Pound of Kindness page or our D3Day page or whichever page, it all comes back to me. So it's I'm pretty easy to find.
And speaking of that, I believe you were a college athlete also.
I was, kind of played every sport growing up. Didn't know what you wanted to do. You had the dreams of playing basketball, and was a decent basketball player. My father was really a world-class athlete. He was a world-class runner from Philadelphia, and so we were always around it. I got to meet people like Jesse Owens when I was just a kid because my father, I was around he's Bruce Jenner at that point and Dave Waddles, mostly the running side, the track side, but O.J. Simpson and the Dr. J's. I got to be a part of all that stuff as far as seeing and being around those kind of people as a young child. And then I wound up I played basketball through my freshman year at a small college. And then I earned a transfer on a full scholarship to the University of Georgia, but as a track runner. I switched over my freshman year to focus on my track abilities. Finally realizing, that's where I had the best shot of climbing the ladder. And so it's some athletic ability. I don't really ever feel like I got to where I would want it to be, but still reached some nice levels.
But I think with that being said, I think that you're where you need to be. Especially with the work that you're doing and stuff like that. It's really important work. Important enough that it took me out of my comfort zone to approach you the first day.
I appreciate that.
And but with basketball being said, I don't look like much of a basketball player, but I don't know if you've heard. I've on this show and other shows I've called Shaquille O'Neal out to a game of basketball.
Yeah, I saw him play. I saw him play when I was at Georgia. I think it was his freshman year. Wow. He played against Georgia. LSU played against Georgia, and of course it was like pretty packed out, for a game because Shaquille O'Neal already had a following, and everybody wanted to see Shaquille O'Neal. So and we share a locker room with the basketball players. The track team back then, we share a locker room with our basketball team. So we kind of tried to support them when we could. But I did see Shaquille play in my days at Georgia.
Oh wow, yeah. I only challenged him to a game of 5.
Yeah.
Because I think that's all the pounding I can take from him. But it was all it was all done in fun, and the winner gets to pick the charity for the whatever donations that we have committed. The winner gets to pick the charity that it goes to, and we kind of we're not looking to invite thousands of people and sell tickets. I just kind of want it to be, just a basketball court and a playground. Which we already have.
Dave Clark to announce it, because that's one of Dave's other skills. He's been a hockey and he's been a hockey announcer all the way to the NHL level, which that's a whole nother trail of story. He loves ice hockey, and he played ice hockey in college, even though he couldn't skate, which eventually will hopefully be another one of my children's books, The Goalie Who Couldn't Skate. So I've got pictures of Dave in the hockey world, and he tried every sport growing up. But he's actually been an announcer, primarily a hockey announcer. He used to, down in Florida, was the announcer for the Everblades for quite a while.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. The Cullen name is pretty engraved in the hockey world. That's my surname, and John Cullen, when he got traded to Tampa, he come down with Lou Gehrig's and ultimately went to the coaching staff and then retired. But he did well for himself, and he's still a little less known, but he was a league high scorer for years. Okay. And he became the captain of the Penguins when Mario Lemieux went out sick. He got bumped up to be the captain for a while, and
gotcha.
And hockey's kind of a sport that.
So I assume you're a Penguins fan then, obviously, because you're.
Yeah, I'm a Penguins fan, and oddly enough, I'm a Steelers fan, I'm a Penguins fan, I'm a Pirates fan, but my sport is basketball. I love basketball dearly, and my team is the Celtics. It always has been, always will be.
So there was 3 teams in the world that I grew up that I had to cheer against. It was the Yankee, the Celtics, and Notre Dame. Those were 3 teams that my father hated for some reason. And then pretty much Pittsburgh Steelers, because we were on the Philly side.
Yeah.
I can't hate the Steelers because I've been working with Rocky Blyer and Terry Bradshaw and one of the linemen, John Kolb, who is one of Terry Bradshaw's best friends in my upcoming newer book that we're getting ready to do. So I've gotten to know these guys, and now I can't cheer against them as much as I used to.
Yeah, I would have probably hadn't it been for the era that I grew up in watching the Steel Curtain, the Terry Bradshaws, the Mean Joe Green, Lynn Swan, John Stallworth, all these guys.
You got spoiled as a kid.
Yeah, we did, and that's the football I will always remember. So when I became a fan of Pittsburgh back then, that was a fan for life. I mean, because that's how I'll always remember football being played. And, so, I mean, we were pretty fortunate in our area to have the role models like that we had.
Right.
And they were very approachable off the field. They weren't beyond approach,
Well, they still are, because I just had a long conversation with John Cobb, and just impressive. He's going overseas. They're working with orphans. These are their life missions, and he was a lineman for the Steelers. And so, again, it makes it hard for me to cheer against the Steelers now.
Yeah.
So, getting to know the soft side of these great guys, and becoming friends with Rocky Blyer. I mean, that was a chance meeting, just like you and I, and now Rocky's going to be in a new book that I'm writing. That's just about, we're working on the cover, and we've got 30 chapters of inspirational people that talk about who pulled them along, kind of like my children's book. And that's going to be pulling each other along, book one. And Rocky Blyer is one of my main chapters, and they're all main chapters, but it was great to get him involved, and you hate to put people up on pedestals because we're all human. But Rocky's one of the good ones. There's no doubt.
Oh yeah. And Dan, the host of the show, Friday is Patriot Day for him, and he's just as patriotic as any other patriot that I've ever met. And so he tries to keep Fridays, mostly patriot driven. And I think it's fitting to have you on the show for that, because you are writing a book with Rocky Blyer, who is a veteran and served in Vietnam.
Yeah.
And so I mean, it's a fantastic person, I think, to for our generation to learn about what these people sacrificed.
Right.
And that led all the way up to Pat Tillman.
Yeah.
And, Pat Tillman left a multi-million-dollar football career to go serve his country after 9/11.
Yeah.
And ultimately he was killed in action.
Yeah.
And, it's great that after all these years, you still have people like Rocky Blyer and Terry Bradshaw still giving back.
Yeah.
In the ways that they do, and, doing a book with you, and just these ways of just lifting people, when they need to be lifted. So it's just amazing.
No, it's and there's so much of that, and unfortunately, that's not what gets on the news. It's all the crappy stuff, and and I'm hopeful that's pulling each other. I mean, I think I shared with you the Rocky Blyer story, right? As far
you
as
did.
Kind of a pre-look at that.
Yeah.
But some of these other stories are just remarkable, from mothers having to deal with a child with mitochondrial disease, and that's such a terrible thing. But the brightness that still comes out of her young son is just remarkable. And and then we have stories that are non-sports related, although a lot of my connections are sports related, so a lot of my stories are sports related in some way. But we have a young girl that's a budding star and a writer in Nashville, and she just went through a year of chemo, conquering leukemia. So we have her story, and we have a boxer that just got nominated to the International Hall of Fame boxing woman, former Marine.
Wow.
And so her story's in there, and the young man, Chris Nickick, who just was the first Down syndrome young man who finished an Ironman.
Yeah.
So he's going to be a chapter in our new book, and that was before he just won. So now we got to kind of update it to say that he broke a world. It's a Guinness Book of World Record for a man with Down syndrome. Being the first ever to finish an Ironman competition under the time limit set for anybody.
Yeah, and it's amazing. And we have and when we talked about this earlier today, I'd mentioned the Iron Man thing reminded me of Iron Man Alex. It's a young kid, Alex Meyer, from Port Charlotte. Alex is 8 years old, I believe. He might be 9, but I was drawn to him because I remember seeing something on Facebook about this 8-year-old boy setting a goal to deliver, all these Christmas presents. I believe it was 1,000 Christmas presents to 1,000 children that are suffering from cancer or going to be hospitalized during the holidays. Gotcha. And he's reaching this goal. And this is a kid that come up with this by himself. And Alex is fighting brain cancer himself. And we were able to do something special for Alex. We put his family in touch with the comedian William Lee Martin, and William Lee Martin's foundation, Cowboys for a Cure, sent him a cowboy hat. And I got to FaceTime with the family while Alex opened the box and put his cowboy hat on. And just a well-spoken young man.
Yeah.
And certainly brings a lot of hope for what he's battling.
Right.
Especially in these times when you hear people say, you're too close to me, and you don't have a mask on, or whatever the case may be. But here's a kid that's full of so much hope and is so full of giving that it just makes you realize that there are people out there like his parents that are raising this kid with values. Right. And they're raising him with great morals and building his character and allowing him to express himself and be free and enjoy life. And it's pretty amazing. And as a father with a child of autism, it's pretty special. And I'm so grateful that before my son was diagnosed, my wife and I gave him the freedoms to go do the things that he wanted to do and, chase a dream, as we did all of our children. So,
right. Yeah. The one of Dave Clark, just circling back, why we call it Disability Dream Induced Sports Camps is because, before I met him, somebody had videotaped him doing a keynote. And one of the things that he says there's two types of dreamers. There's dreamers that dream, and there's dreamers that dream and do. And of course, you can dream all you want, but if you don't put action to those dreams, it's kind of pointless.
Yeah.
And we want to encourage people. The hope for humanity is that we're not just dreamers, but that we're actively dreaming and actively pursuing our dreams and taking them as far as we can to find out how far or high up we can make those dreams a reality.
Good. I mean, it's just, I think it's great what you're doing. I think it's great what Dave's doing. It certainly instills hope in a lot of people. I try to look at the positive side of everything. And it's really, really great. And while I'm thinking of positive, I just want to make a mention to a really good friend of mine, Robin McNeese Craig. Robin was a nurse, a registered nurse for a long time, diagnosed with pulmonary fibrosis, and by the grace of God, just got her double lung transplant. And her daughter Alicia has been with her all by her side. Robin's a single mom. Alicia is a first responder, and Robin is doing fantastic with her new lungs. And we can't wait to see the video of her taking her first breath. Okay. Because we won't be allowed in the hospital to see it. Sure. But yeah, it's pretty great. And our club has done, some things on raising awareness and stuff like that for that foundation for the pulmonary fibrosis. And, it's just, it's what we got to do. I mean, we have the ability and the resources to do this. And, any excuse for people that don't know the biker culture, any excuse for bikers or motorcycle enthusiasts to get out and ride, they'll take that advantage.
Yeah.
And it's like a pack of wolves. You put a cause down there and a price on it, they're there. So if you say, hey, we're going to do a ride from here to there, and we'd like every motorcycle to donate $20 and do this ride with us, and at the end, the ride's going to go to this, the money's going to go to this charity or this cause, or bikers are the first people that'll do it, and and a lot of times it's great for the biker community, because regardless of what patches you wear and what you represent when you ride, it brings everybody together just as a motorcycle enthusiast and somebody that wants to support and love their country and just give back to human kind. So it's it's amazing.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we can get one of those where Dave Clark's waiting at the end and people can shake his hand and meet him, because he's really a person you want to meet.
It's somebody I want to meet for sure.
Yeah. No, I get to travel with them. We get to fight in the hotels and over how hot, he wants it 1,000,000 degrees hot and I want it 1,000,000 degrees cold. And, and being the nasty person I can be, I have to wait until he takes his braces off when he's in his bed. And then I turn the air conditioner, down to 65 instead of his 85. But, we've got to know each other almost like brothers. And, people do think we're brothers at times. So we, it's pretty amazing story, pretty amazing man. Not a perfect man by any means, as none of us are, but certainly one of the most amazing stories and people you could ever meet if you get a chance.
Absolutely. Well, I know you traveled down from New York to be here this weekend for business, and it's a short trip for you, and I don't want to take up all your time. I really appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to have lunch with me.
Yeah, my pleasure. No, I mean, it's my pleasure to do that. It's to meet folks like you that are serving the community, and to be able to join and connect with you guys and see what the future might hold. And it's definitely it's more on my pleasure side, and you treat it, so that even made it better.
Well, yeah.
Your wife did, I think. I don't know.
No, I gave her my card.
Oh, there you go.
My wife is the type of person, we go to the grocery store, right when it's time to pay, she says, I'm going to go put the cart back.
There you go. Okay. So, I appreciate that. It's just,
absolutely.
It's a small thing, but it's not a small thing,
Absolutely. I mean, it's just, like I said, kindness is free. And where we can give it out is, and the thing is what you're doing to pay so many things forward through your experiences and your connections and just your love for what you do. Anybody that meets you can absolutely see that you're passionate about your work, and it's so refreshing. It really is.
No, I appreciate it.
We will get the word out. It'll be on Facebook. The video can be downloaded from if you go to Facebook and type in Dan the Messenger.
Okay.
And then Hope for Humanity 2020 also on Facebook, and there's hopeforhumanity2020.com, and the Punishers platform will also post it. And we're gonna get your word out there, and we're gonna get these people knowing the story, because I think that the story is important. And the gift of that book sent me spiraling back to childhood just from seeing the cover of it. And it's and I'm so excited to just sit down with my grandson and read it. And anybody that knows you, I'm not excited about sitting down and reading anything.
Yeah.
But this, I just, I can't wait for that quiet, time that him and I can sit down and, I'll read a page and he reads a page and I'll read a page and we'll just read it to each other. And it's, it's pretty exciting to know that this book is going to allow us to do that.
Yeah. I hope to do some other types of versions. This is more of a, I don't know, like young reader type version, but I have 4 grandkids already now. And one of my grandkids is at my house quite often. And she'll go into my computer bag and pull out the book, but I have to read it differently to a 2-year-old than,
right.
And I want to write a version that's more geared toward a 2 or 3-year-old. But again, it all takes money and time and when you put these things together. So, but
hopefully with what we're doing, this is the beginning of a long-lasting relationship, and we can continue to, be a voice for your cause and help when we can and where we can, and get you out there, just putting this passion that you and Dave have so much in people, and it's like I said, it's refreshing and it's really incredible to see. So,
well, I appreciate you seeing that. I appreciate you taking the time to meet a stranger. And we're not strangers anymore.
Not anymore.
Yeah, very good.
So, all right, we're gonna go ahead and wrap this up for tonight, and we'll get it over. The audio will be the producers will do stuff with the audio, so the audio will be available for download as well, I believe. And then of course this will be available on all platforms. It'll be available on Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, and you just have to look for Dan the Messenger, and where he comes up, these shows come up. So in the mix, the after show, and Dan the Messenger will all come up. But great stories, Doug. It was great having you tonight. I appreciate the last minute.
Yeah, no worries. I'm pretty good with it.
And please give my best to your family over the holidays. My best to Dave and his family over the holidays, and I hope that you have safe travels. Stay in touch with me.
Yeah.
Certainly like to certainly like you to let me know you made it home safe. I know,
all right, we'll do that.
And I don't wish you any shovel work when you head back to New York. So,
well, typically when I'm in New York, I like to figure out when the snow. It's not the snow; it's when it drops below 20 and it's windy. That's when I want to have business down here. So that's when I'll be calling you, Tom, and saying, "Hey, we need to have a meeting," so I have an excuse to get down.
That's right. That's right. I agree.
And typically I'm down here during spring training because that's when I'm trying to connect with the baseball teams. And, but again, 2021, I don't know what it looks like. I wish I could tell you right now. I'm just trying to get to the end of 2020 because every time I've planned this year, my plans have gotten changed. And so we hit a roadblock, and then we figured, okay, how do we get around it? How do we get under it? How do we get through it? And that's been our business plan here for the last 8 to 9 months now.
Yeah, it's been 2020 hasn't been great for me, and a friend of mine sent me a thing just because I had this running joke for the last 30 years, and she sent me this thing, asked me if I wrote it, and it says if 2020 was a math problem, and then the caption is if you're walking on ice cream at 5 ounces per toaster and your bicycle loses a sock, how much gravy will you need to repaint your hamster? And that just made my day today, because that is something I would say, just out of the blue, and it just has people guessing what it is you say, but it's an attention grabber,
right? Yeah.
And if you can grab somebody's attention and make them smile, makes it worth it to me. I look like an asshole either way most of the time, so but I'm grateful for people like you that cross my path, and it just reaffirms that there's good people out there.
Well, let's do some good together. How about that?
Absolutely, we're going to get it done.
Yeah.
So I appreciate it, Doug. Thank you so much for being on, and thank everybody for listening and tuning in to the after show, Dan the Messenger. Unfortunately, Dan couldn't be with us tonight, and hopefully, I I got a face for radio, so so
no, I didn't laugh. I laughed with you.
Right. Yeah, my wife's agreeing with me. So,
right.
And so we welcome everybody to come in and go find this book, Pound of Kindness, and look up Dave Clark baseball, Dave Clark polio. You can search and it'll come up. And certainly look up Doug Cornfield, because if you look up Doug, the book does come up when you search your name, and it leads you to the d3day.com.
Yeah.
And if everybody donated $1, it would make a world of difference. Everybody's like, well, I can't donate $100, but if you get 100 people to donate $1.
Yeah, it's like we do a lot of fundraising at Sam's Clubs, all over. And if I would, instead of we sell honey and cheese and different products that we've developed to raise money for this cause. But if everybody just popped $1 in there, we wouldn't even need to do anything.
Exactly.
Most people walk right by you, which is fine. That's their obligation and that's their freedom. But fortunately, they love our honey and our other products. So
and I'll tell you, it's funny that we talk about that, because on our last show, I kind of had a little bit of a meltdown. I've in my 30-year career, of law enforcement, I've been known to go out and buy coffee for homeless people, buy food for homeless people, and when all this COVID thing started, I was going out every day and buying $20 or $30 worth of hamburgers at McDonald's. And of course I would eat one, for my lunch, and then I would hand the rest out. But I met this guy, John Morgan, and the day that I met him, he had just walked from Sarasota. He hitchhiked, but he didn't get a ride, so he walked from Sarasota. John was an older man that hadn't spoke to his family in 20 years, and I was able to find his sister while we sat there in the dirt and ate cheeseburgers.
Wow.
It was a friendship that I made that lasted up until the day he died recently. And it's a friendship that I'll forever hold dearly to me. That $1 made such a difference in that guy's life. And what I take away from 30 years of doing my job, that $1 made a world of difference on how we in my profession can encounter the community.
Yeah.
And we can definitely make a difference in people's lives, regardless of what's going on in society. We can still be kind and compassionate. So,
right. Very good.
All right. I appreciate it, Doug, and keep in touch with me, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. Take care of yourself.
All right. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye. And I thank you all for tuning in, and Dan should be back on the next regularly scheduled show. So, love you guys, Punishers for life, and good night. Stay classy, San Diego.